Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Conversations on Groong episode. After 2 years of deadlock and crisis, Lebanon was able to finally elect a new president. On January 9, Army Chief Joseph Aoun was elected president by the Lebanese parliament. Aoun, in his turn, has named prominent diplomat and president of the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, based in The Hague, Nawaf Salam, as prime minister. We're going to talk about this and what this means for Lebanon and the region with Yeghia Tashjian, who is an expert in Middle East and Persian Gulf geopolitics.
But before we get going, a few notes. We really appreciate your comments and thoughts on our YouTube videos. We read them, but also we think that this is making a big difference in helping people discover us on YouTube and making our channel more visible. So please stay involved, like and share our content with your friends. And of course, we would always welcome your support. You can do that through podcasts.groong.org/donate. And you can use Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and a few other methods. We thank you in advance for that. And on with the show.
Hello, Yeghia. Welcome back and Happy New Year.
Hello, same to you.
Yeah. So previous president Michel Aoun left the presidency in October 2022, and the Lebanese factions have been unable since then to come to some kind of a consensus and elect a president. Now, less than 2 months after Hezbollah was badly damaged and its leader was assassinated, Nasrallah, by Israel, consensus was achieved, and General Joseph Aoun was elected as the new president of Lebanon. Can you tell us what the circumstances were that led to Joseph Aoun's election?
Yes, thank you, Asbed. So basically, I think that there were regional and domestic factors behind the coming of General Joseph Aoun. First, regionally, I think Saudi Arabia has lobbied a lot. The French, the Americans also. And let's not forget that the ceasefire agreement that was signed November 27, 2024, it was not just about, South Lebanon and the ceasefire and to manage, let's say, the conflict between Lebanon and Israel, but it was beyond about it. If you read it in detail, you realize that it was the American role was going to increase in the future. Of course, this depends also from Trump's policy towards Lebanon, whether it will change from Biden's policy or not. But definitely, it gave more a green light to U.S. influence in the region. At the same time, coherence to the increasing Saudi Arabian increasing influence. Just 2 days ago or more, we heard that also Walid Ben Talal was going to invest in the Four Seasons Hotel, I think, or something, and renovation will take place or something will end by 2026. This would also bring investment. So it seems that there is a green light from also some of the Gulf countries and also the Americans and maybe the European unions. Yesterday, both the Europeans and the Americans pledged to also send humanitarian or let's say financial aid to our army. So of course, everything is conditional. So I think it was a package deal. And definitely when there were rumors after the election of the president that who was going to become as prime minister, initially some, for example, political parties and MPs, they were going to give their vote to Najib Mikati. The second day, even maybe in few hours, they suddenly changed their mind and they voted in favor of Nawaf Salam, the reformist, let's say, the prime minister-elect. I think that was a pressure from some regional countries that if you expect any aid from us, it will be conditional, that is Lebanon should engage in political and economic and also institutional reforms. Otherwise, the country will not go forward.
That makes sense. Joseph Aoun is a lifelong Lebanese military man. First of all, let me ask, is he related to Michel Aoun and his Free Patriotic Movement Party? And what political parties is he associated or sympathizes with?
He's not affiliated or associated with any political party or with former President Michel Aoun. And let's not forget that as an army general, he's forbidden actually to be affiliated with any political party.
Okay. Lebanon's politics are generally divided between the pro-West camps and the pro-Iranian camps. And Hezbollah, of course, is the main pro-Iranian faction and force in the country. Who are exactly Aoun's supporters, and what's the kind of agenda that you think he will pursue?
Now everyone is saying that he supports Aoun. Because when there is a victory, everyone wants to jump in the train. But it's clear, let's say that from the beginning that, I mean, the Americans were pushing for Joseph Aoun. Even I remember CNN published the news with the title, "The American-backed or the US-backed president," and so forth. But also some forces maybe close to Saudi Arabia and the US, either they took a green light or actually out of conviction they've voted in favor, even though there were also some other, let's say, quote unquote pro-American or pro-Saudi candidates. However, I think they didn't have the chance to become more there was no consensus for them. Whereas on Joseph Aoun, there was more consensus because also always in the mindset of the Lebanese and in our at least modern post-1990 history, the Lebanese army institution or the military institution always had the respect of everyone. I mean, even political parties, they differ, but when it comes to the Lebanese army, they had the respect. And I think the only candidate that could have achieved the vote of the majority political parties was Joseph Aoun, out of respect, of course, of the Lebanese army also.
Yeah, the ceasefire in November stipulated that Israel must withdraw from all Lebanese territories by January 26th. And Hezbollah must not remain in the south of Lebanon or south of Litani River. Aoun has made strong statements that the Lebanese army will become the sole source of power in Lebanon. And he said that also the army will get rid of the Israeli occupation. And Aoun has also sternly condemned the continued Israeli occupation, the ceasefire violations, and the ongoing bombings and killings, and has demanded that they stop by January 26th, which is a week away. So, what are your expectations on the ceasefire front?
Let's also not forget Hovik that Aoun is from the south. He's from Jazin area, so basically it also gives him legitimacy. This is the first president actually in Lebanese history that we have a president from the south. This is important. Also, when it comes to ceasefire, so basically on the, I think if I'm not missing it, it's the Article 11 or 10 or 12 in the ceasefire agreement. It says that the Israeli army should withdraw from Lebanon, and this timeline should not exceed 60 days. However, it says that at the same time, the Lebanese army should be deployed, that is, the 10,000 Lebanese soldiers should deploy in parallel. And at the same time, in parallel, in the south of Litani River, all the infrastructure of the non-state actors or non-authorized military force, that is Hezbollah or others, should be disarmed. Now, this is a very ambitious issue because in 60 days, it's impossible to deploy the army, that is 10,000 soldiers. At the same time, maybe it's impossible. However, there were rumors a few weeks ago, and this is not just rumors. I mean, leaked information in the Israeli media that the Israelis argued that they don't want to withdraw because of some delay when it comes to deployment of the Lebanese army. However, Lebanon has pressure that we have to respect the ceasefire. And when the American Special Envoy Amos Hochstein he came to Lebanon, he said that the Americans, the Israelis should withdraw. And yes, it is difficult. However, they should withdraw. And also, we heard guarantees from the Americans and also the head of the Secretary General of the UN. He said also the same thing, that the Israelis will withdraw. At the same time, they will do their best to, as much as they can, to support the deployment of the Lebanese army. My assumption is that actually there are two options. Either the Israelis will withdraw, or maybe there would be delay of few days. I'm a bit concerned that in this delay of few days, maybe Hezbollah will retaliate because at the same time, the Israelis are violating the Lebanese airspace. The drones are almost, again, they are rotating over our sky. At the same time, the Israelis are still bombing under the pretext that, for example, X and Y, Z area, there are Hezbollah infrastructures. We have no clue whether this is true or not. However, this is a violation of the ceasefire also from the Israeli side, because the only responsible force to dismantle any non-authorized military infrastructure in south of Litani River, it is the Lebanese army and not the Israelis. But however, like things, power politics, it's all about power politics. And because the Israelis have the upper hand, they are sometimes violating, but hopefully not. I'm also here, I have a concern that how the Americans will try to respond to this violation after Trump's come. That is, will Trump follow Biden's policy to exert some pressure on the Israelis or no? This is also a bit concerning.
You mean to appease the Israelis or exert pressure?
Maybe
I
both.
mean, I don't know how strong Biden was on Israel, to be honest, like in terms of Lebanon at least.
Well, we're recording this on the 19th, and this is the last day of Biden's presidency.
Yeah, I think the issue is that the question is, Hovik, again, that why the ceasefire happened in Lebanon. The war could have continued, and maybe the Israelis would have occupied additional towns, or maybe not, because at the same time Hezbollah was resisting, and we should respect this. But maybe there would be more damage in Beirut. Again, why the Israelis stopped? Why is the Israelis stopped in Gaza? I think these are
Yeah.
questions that we don't have. I mean, like everyone is saying that whether this is defeat or a victory of resistance and so forth. I don't want to be emotional. There are questions, really. Will there be another front be opened in the region? That suddenly the Israelis, because the Israelis were saying that they were victorious, and now what has happened? Will this front be in the West Bank, on Iran, on China? I think in the coming weeks, maybe, or months, we will see which direction the region or even the global, I mean, we are heading.
One more thing, Hovik. I think that there's also the specter of the Trump presidency because he has said that if he comes to his term, which is tomorrow, basically, and all these issues are still outstanding, it's not going to be good for anyone. And I think he meant to say not just the Arabic side, but also for Israel. And I don't think anybody's interested in taking a chance this early in the presidency.
Coming back to Hezbollah and the ceasefire, we know that Hezbollah initially did not vote for Aoun, and on the second round only they voted for him. Was that a message? And do you see Hezbollah sticking? I mean, you raised that question yourself, but do you see Hezbollah? How likely is Hezbollah to stick to the November 27 agreement?
Not just Hezbollah, but also the Amal movement. And if I'm not mistaken, mostly all Shia MPs, they didn't vote. I think it was a message at the same time because according to the Shia or Hezbollah narrative that they were feeling a bit isolated and there was the idea was that actually according to them, again, that those MPs who suddenly changed their position and voted for General Aoun, it was a pressure from the outside. So this means that these Lebanese MPs are compromising the sovereignty of the country. So the argument was that Hezbollah is against it because we don't want to give up to American and Saudi pressure. However, again, the problem is that here I'm raising is that for 2 years, the Lebanese could have exercised their sovereign act, which they didn't. And this is, something that I'm ashamed of, that the Lebanese have waited for 2 years. They wasted 2 years. They wasted 4 years of, they didn't engage in any economic reform. And suddenly they are crying that the Western powers or the Saudis, they imposed a candidate. Well, I mean, they could have done it before. Again, at the same time, when Nawaf Salam was also selected as prime minister, again, there was this argument from the Amal movement and Hezbollah that there was a constitutional coup. I mean, as they said, that there was agreement, alleged agreement with the president that the candidate was going to happen Najib Mikati and on the government issues. And then suddenly, I'm not sure what has happened. But again, I don't want any community or any political party to be isolated because we all need each other to reconstruct this country. I mean, and the more we are weakened, the more we are divided, our enemies will try to use us as proxy battleground.
Yeah, what does Nawaf Salam bring to the table? And also, as you were considering, how does his selection over Mikati set the stage between Aoun and Hezbollah?
If Mikati was going to come again, there was not a single hope for reform. Because, I mean, like, he has the backup of the banking sector.
Mm-hmm.
he is not the one that will reform the banking sector, because the lobbying of the banking sector in Lebanon is much stronger than any political party when it comes to lobbying activities. I think Salam is also will have to take very strong and risky decisions. Now there is the case of the Beirut port explosion. This is a ticking bomb, actually. It's like a cave you are entering, because a lot of
Do you mean politically or economically?
politically, because a lot of politicians are involved in this issue, and also officials from the maybe military institutions, because it was a corruption. The whole idea was about corruption, that this dismantled ammonium ship was there. Why it was there? Who was the responsible? So of course, some ministers, ministries, and so forth. I'm a bit concerned. Yes, when it comes to justice, also I'm asking for justice, but at the same time, I'm concerned that can be politicized. This is, I think, a challenge. Another challenge, of course, are the banking reform, financial reform, and also the parliamentary elections, which are due to in 2026. So some political parties will do their best to take share of the cake, and later also consume for domestic consumptions or use for domestic consumptions to mobilize voters. Still, it's early because things change. Also, the electoral law. There is a lot of concern that this electoral law need to be reformed. So there are a lot of challenges. I mean, like, yes, of course, when the president gave his inauguration speech, or let's say it was very Shakespearean, like I said, romantic, like very, this is what we as Lebanese wanted or dreamed of. But at the same time, I mean, I want to be optimistic, but I cannot say that it's very realistic for only 6 years we can do all these things. At least if the president and the prime minister, of course, because the president doesn't have the constitutional power, if they accomplish 20 or 30% of what is said, I think it is great.
The sudden change in power in Syria, how do you see relations with Syria, given the new government in Lebanon? And also, how much influence, actually, maybe it's a separate question, but related, does Turkey retain strong influence in Lebanese politics still, and especially with these new nominations and elections?
Regarding what has happened in Syria, I think it was going to happen someday. Yes, it was very surprising that it has happened in 12 days, that the regime toppled in 12 days. And this raises two questions. Either there was no regime, it was a balloon, or actually the regional actors have just abandoned the regime. I mean, including Iran, Russia, and also Hezbollah to some. But Hezbollah was weakened, so it was not in a position to help the regime. Or maybe there was arrangement between Russia and Turkey, but according to my information and was what Turkish experts have argued, that actually no, the HTS took the decision. Turkey jumped on the train, and the Russians were not in a position to defend the regime any more. Regarding the new administration in Syria, there were a lot of concerns initially that massacres were going to happen and so on, because radicals came to power. And let's not forget the HTS is the former Al-Qaeda in Syria. However, the violations and the crimes that are happening now are managed. Still, but this is concerning. I mean, we are hearing news that, like some provocations in Christian neighborhoods, attacks, killing of or assassination of prominent Alawite figure, or also Sunni scholars and so forth. But at the same time, dialogue is being continued between the new administration and the so-called minorities. I don't like always to use the term minorities, because, like we are all indigenous people of this region. And at the same time, let's say so this will take time. But of course, the power struggle will continue in Syria between different militias, between the so-called Syrian National Army, the HTS, the Kurds, the Druze in the south, and also at the same time, there are reports that the Alawites at the same time are having meetings with the Saudi diplomats, because They want a protection. They don't want the Turks to protect them because they do not trust the Turkish influence. However, still it's also early to say that this was a Turkish victory in Syria. Definitely. I mean, at the same time, Turkish influence has increased, but let's not forget that when it comes to reconstruction, it is not Turkey that will reconstruct Syria. The main reconstruction partners will be the Gulf states, the Qataris, the Emiratis, the Saudis, and maybe others, because they have the financial resources, and also the Europeans. And these reforms will be conditional. From the Saudi Emirati perspective, the condition is to see a Syrian government which is loyal to the Arab cause and the Arab front and not the Turkish front. And the European condition is very clear that when it comes to rights of the minorities, democratic transition, justice, and the women's rights, and so forth. So the HTS, even though ideologically, let's say, they are this radical Salafi Islam and so forth, but at the same time, I think until now they are playing it very right and very cleverly, maneuvering at the same time, maybe trying to reform themselves. Hopefully this is the case, but this is very optimistic. We have the experience of the Salafis in Egypt. It was not very positive experience, but let's see things how will go. At the same time, the impact on Lebanon, definitely. I mean, stability in Syria and the preservation of the multicultural social fabric in Syria is very important, because any God forbids an ethnic cleansing or massacre or violence in Syria will have repercussions on Lebanon. We have seen this in 2012, 13, and 14, the bombings in Lebanon. So if Syria is stable, I think Lebanon also would see stability. And this is why also we need communal and also political dialogue between the Syrians themselves and the Syrians and the Lebanese. Also, when it comes to Turkish influence, the Turkish influence in north of Lebanon always there is there. And after the ousting of the regime in Syria, we saw, for example, some Turkish flags and Erdogan's photos and so forth, but it's always there, But at the same time, let's not forget that the Qataris and the Turks, they also had some candidates when it comes to the presidency and also the premiership. And their candidates didn't take because Joseph Aoun and also Nawaf Salam were supported by Saudi Arabia. So this also shows that there is a silent competition between Saudi Arabia and Turkey. And this will always remain, this competition, but hopefully it will be managed and competitive and not conflicting, because it will have repercussions in the region. So for now, I think, but also let's not forget that there is the maritime agreement between Syria and Turkey, and also Turkey in Lebanon. So we'll see how things will go.
So, and let me ask also a very quick naive question. We see that the new government in Syria is establishing diplomatic relations with different states. What is the status or level of relations between the new HTS government in Syria and Lebanon?
Very diplomatic relations. We have ambassadors, but at the same time, let's not forget the issue is that the first people that visited Syria, unfortunately, was not the Lebanese officials, but communal leaders. And this is a problem for me that it's not always state and state regions. Sometimes community relations, because most of the communities in Lebanon are transnational communities. That is the Druze, the Shia, the Sunnis. I mean, there were also, for example, posters and pictures in Tripoli, in a Sunni-dominated city, posting, I don't know, the pictures or the photos of Ahmad al-Sharia. I'm against that. I'm against, for example, seeing photos of Khomeini or any Sunni leaders or Erdogan, or even like, I don't know, as an Armenian, I don't want to see Pashinyan's pictures, like say in Armenian neighborhood, because I will not see it. But again, because I want to feel as a Lebanese. Yes, maybe politically.
I didn't know there were Pashinyan's pictures in Lebanon. I'm sorry. I'm like, now I'm shocked.
I don't remember that. Maybe in 2018 or something.
Okay.
I'm against it. Yes, you may have transnational causes. You may also support Palestine, you may support Armenia, you may support, I don't know, whoever you want. But at the same time, I'm against, for example, seeing, like pictures. It's like as if you're jumping on the loyalty of the state. And this is because we lack a social contract in Lebanon, in Syria. And at the same time, we see forces who always want to confront the Sykes-Picot borders and so forth, because these are, according to some leaders or politicians, these are imperialist imposed borders. Okay, these are the borders. Let's respect it and respect our, at the same time, sovereignty.
Yeah. Back in March 2023, Iran and Saudi Arabia rebooted their long-standing relationship in Beijing. They signed an agreement that encompassed security cooperation as well as various aspects of their diplomatic relations. Do you think it's possible that Iran and Saudi Arabia reached some sort of agreement or any kind of a set of consensus on how to change the political landscape in the Middle East, such as, for example, we're seeing Syria evolving right now, Hezbollah has been weakened, and Lebanon is currently evolving as well. Do you think there are any repercussions that are flowing down a couple of years down the line from that agreement?
Things are going smoothly because I mean, especially when it comes to Yemen, Yemen also is a big problem, challenging when it comes to the Iranian and the Saudi reconciliation. But I'm not sure that back then there was the issue of Syria, because the Saudis and the Emiratis were doing their best to bring Syria, the Syrian regime, at the same time to the Arab League to normalize Syria's relations with its Arab neighborhood. And the Iranians were supporting, but at the same time, the motive behind this step from the Arab countries was to detach as much as they can Syria from Iran. Now this challenge is no more. However, they are doing their best to bring Syria or integrate in the Arab family in order to detach maybe from Turkey. And I think the Iranians, they also have the interest. I mean, I am hearing at the same time the speeches of the current Iranian administration. At the same time, the speeches of the spiritual leader, which sometimes contradict actually, because many times the spiritual leader said that the Syrian youth from here to 1 year, they will rebel against the current administration and so forth. But when it comes to the current administration in Iran, they are very diplomatic, they are very careful when it comes to such things, and they are open. I mean, even the president, before signing the strategic comprehensive agreement with Russia, he said that they are open also with West, and also they want to sign similar agreement with Europeans in the future. So the Iranians are diversifying, I think, their relations, maybe out of fear that the Israelis and Trump's administration would attack Iran soon. This is why I think the Iranians are doing their best to keep their relations normalized. I mean, normalize their relations with the Saudis and the Arab countries in order maybe to mobilize some regional countries to prevent any possible attack against Iran in the near future.
Okay. Well, let's close on with a question about the Armenian community, how it relates to the new president, Joseph Aoun, if there are good relations, if there are known relations. What is your impression on that front?
I was at the same time monitoring, for example, what was being posted on social media, not just by Armenians, but also by Lebanese journalists and so forth. Some were saying that actually, why the Armenians suddenly, especially the Armenian political parties or the MPs, they took or changed their decisions and so forth. The Armenians are always flexible, especially, I mean, the only traditional political party represented in the government in the past years, and also the parliament, is the ALF, or the Taşnak party. They are always flexible, and also their main motto is that, and also the motto of the other political parties, that we are always with the state, whoever comes to power, because it is a small community, the number is shrinking. So if the state is strong, then the community will be strong. So I can say that starting 2019 with the financial crisis, the Beirut port explosion, there was a mass wave of immigration from the Armenians. Some, of course, repatriated to Armenia. This is something positive. Some actually, they are coming, they are going back. So this is also something positive. And then maybe in the future, it will be a bridge between Armenia and Lebanon to boost the economic relations between both countries, because both countries have potential when it comes to soft power, cultural exchange programs, education exchange programs, and so forth. And let's not forget that Armenia also has small contingent within the UNIFIL. So I look forward. I mean, and the community at the same time is taking oxygen. Oh, the electricity went. So the community, I think, at the same time is trying to take some bread and some oxygen because the war was very devastating. I mean, like we are losing the middle class, and this is not a secret anymore. So hopefully this will be opportunity to bring back the traditional Armenian middle class capital to Lebanon as a hub for the Middle East, because Armenia also needs the Middle East. At the same time, we as a community in Lebanon, like as Lebanese, I think we had the same suffering as other communities had in Lebanon because our youth were immigrating because of financial issues. But hopefully, again, as I said in the beginning, there is a cautious optimism. But we have to do our best when it comes to reconstruction of our country. And there were also like debates and discussions about the foreign policy of Lebanon because the more Lebanon adopts isolationist foreign policy, as we have adopted in the last few years, the less Arab countries will help us, the more we'll be isolated, and we'll always have a problem with the neighborhood. If we adopt a positive neutrality, hopefully this was also in the speech of the president, it means that we'll have a more stable country, and this will also bring some prosperity to the communities and also in our life in Lebanon.
Well, all right. On that hopeful note, let's leave it there for today. Thank you, Yeghia, for joining us.
Thank you.
You're welcome,
Thank you, everyone.
Yeghia.
Thank you. Thank you. Merci.
All right. Well, that's our show today, January 19, 2025. We've been talking with Yeghia Tashjian, who is an analyst and researcher based in Beirut with expertise in China's geopolitical and energy security interests in Iran and the Persian Gulf. Currently, he is an instructor in international affairs at the American University of Science and Technology and International and Regional Affairs Cluster Coordinator at the Sam Ferris Institute for Public Policy and International Affairs at the American University of Beirut. For more information on everyone in the show, please visit our show notes at podcast.groong.org/the episode number. I'm Asbed Bedrossian.
And I'm Hovik Manucharyan.
So please find us on social media and follow us everywhere you get your Armenian news. The links are going to be in the show notes. Thank you for following us.
And don't forget to drop your comments on the YouTube video. Thank you and have a nice day.